What if the next global war wasn't fought just with soldiers and tanks, but with, algorithms and just an absolutely endless supply of cash? Today, we're going to dive deep into the staggering price tag of modern warfare and how artificial intelligence is rewriting all the rules, not just on the battlefield, but for the entire global economy. Okay, let's start with a number, $1.43 billion. Now, that's not the budget for some Hollywood blockbuster. That's not the price of a new skyscraper. No, that's what some estimates say is the cost of a single day of high-tech war. How is that even possible? Well, let's get into it. To really get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, we're going to look at how AI is creating this new, frankly, terrifying speed of war. Then we'll follow the money and check out the billion-dollar burn rate. After that, we're going to zoom way out to see how all this spending becomes a war on the entire global economy. And finally, we'll ask the really big question: is this just the new cost of conflict from now on? Right, so let's step onto what you might call the factory floor of modern warfare. And I'm not talking about assembling tanks here. This is about assembling targets. We're about to see how AI is creating an industrial-scale assembly line for making military decisions. And believe me, it changes everything. So the engine of this new war machine is something called AI-assisted targeting. Look, picture a security team trying to watch thousands of camera feeds at the same time. A human is going to miss almost everything, right? But an AI, it can watch all of them, all the time, sifting through drone footage, satellite pics, communications, you name it, and flagging potential targets almost instantly. And this is where it gets really mind-boggling. This slide shows you the truly staggering leap we're talking about. A team of human analysts might spend an entire year to identify 50 targets. But an AI system, which has been nicknamed the gospel, can spit out 100 in a single day. You see, this isn't just an upgrade. It's a completely different way of thinking about military intelligence. And it's not just one system. It's a whole chain, an assembly line. One AI identifies buildings. Another one, called Lavender, cross-references data to identify potential human targets and has reportedly flagged up to 37,000 individuals. And then a third system, Fire Factory, handles all the logistics. It's like an automated manager, figuring out the right munitions and assigning the strike. It's a seamless pipeline from data straight to destruction, which brings up a huge concern called automation bias. That's the danger that humans just start trusting the machine's recommendations without even questioning them. So, if you can fight a war at the speed of an algorithm, what on earth does that do to the price tag? Okay, let's open the books on this new kind of conflict. And I'll warn you, the numbers are just breathtaking. And here it is again, $1.43 billion. That was the estimated daily military spend during the initial phase of the 2026 Iran conflict. Now here's the real kicker. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, almost none of this was budgeted for. It was all emergency spending, like turning on a financial fire hose to fuel this high-speed war machine. And that wasn't just a one-off thing. In the Gaza and Lebanon conflict, the direct military costs had already blown past $40 billion by the end of 2024. The pattern here is pretty clear. The faster and more high-tech the war gets, the faster the money just burns away. But here's where the economic story gets really weird. While the government was just hemorrhaging money on the war, some parts of Israel's economy were actually booming. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange shot up over 80%, and investment in high-tech companies actually grew. It's this incredible paradox. The very same technology that's driving up the cost of war was also fueling an economic boom in the defense and cybersecurity sectors. But the cost of a modern war never just stays on the battlefield. It sends out shockwaves, and those shockwaves, they hit the entire global economy. Let's take a look at that ripple effect. $11.7 trillion. That is more than the entire economies of Japan and Germany combined. It's the catastrophic price tag some economists said could be wiped from the global economy if a regional conflict just spiraled out of control, choking off travel and trade. It just goes to show how the indirect costs of war can completely dwarf the direct ones. So how could the damage be so widespread? Well, economists call it a dual supply shock, which is basically a 1-2 punch to the global economy. Punch 1, an energy crisis. Key shipping lanes get disrupted, oil prices spike, and suddenly everything from your Amazon delivery to your plane ticket gets way more expensive. Punch 2, a travel freeze. The Middle East is a huge hub for air travel. When that bridge between continents closes, it pretty much paralyzes a sector that's worth nearly 10% of the entire world's economy. And this, right here, perfectly illustrates our global economy's Achilles heel. It's all built on a handful of critical choke points. You've got the Strait of Hormuz for oil, the Suez Canal for all our stuff, even the undersea internet cables in the Red Sea. Squeeze any one of these, and the whole system just starts to seize up. Rerouting a single container ship can add over $1 million in fuel costs, a price that, you guessed it, eventually gets passed on to all of us. So all of this forces us to ask a really fundamental question. We usually think of technology as making things cheaper, more efficient, right? But what happens when you apply that same logic to warfare? Does it still hold up, or does it do something else entirely? Okay, this is the crucial takeaway. AI doesn't make war cheaper. It creates a vicious cycle of cost. First, the AI accelerates targeting. This creates what you could call a munitions vacuum, just burning through incredibly expensive smart weapons. That escalating consumption forces massive, unbudgeted government spending. And as the war drags on, the disruption pushes the cost onto the entire global economy. So AI makes war faster, and that makes it phenomenally more expensive. And this quote from the legal blog Lawfare really explains why this cycle just doesn't stop. In the business world, if you burn through cash this fast, you go bankrupt. Game over. But military AI is treated differently. Some people call it an abnormal technology. The relentless pressure for a strategic edge just overrides the normal financial breaks. The costs, both in money and in human lives, get pushed outward, paid for by taxpayers and civilians, far away from the people who deployed the tech in the first place. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. As AI takes a larger and larger role on the battlefield, are we entering a totally new era of conflict? One where victory isn't determined by strategy or by soldiers on the ground, but simply by a nation's ability to sustain an economic burn rate that is fueled and massively sped up by algorithms?